Welcome to another episode of the cut content of Spec Ops: The Line. We'll be looking into what appears to be an original draft of the campaign storyline hidden within the srgame.int file of Spec Ops localization folder. This outlines the campaign from Chapter 1 to Chapter 11. It's missing Chapters 12 to 15 because it ends at 11. And it seems to compress some chapters together. They also have different titles and sort of different descriptions. It seems like the same gist of the story is covered here, just in a different order. I should also point out that within the game's structure, some of the levels are lumped together. So it's possible that this could just be earlier internal description of the levels, but it still isn't exactly accessible by default, so I believe it's worth looking into. For all we know, it could be a beta outline of the storyline or something of that sort. Let's go right ahead and start reading into it. The description's broken up into 11 chapters. Chapter 1 is called The Desert, Chapter 2, The Nest, Chapter 3, The Gorge, Chapter 4, The Gate, Chapter 5, The Road, Chapter 6, Water, Chapter 7, The Squad, Chapter 8, The Radio Man, Chapter 9, The Graveyard, Chapter 10, The Tower, and then Chapter 11, Epilogue. They all have descriptions similar to the ones you find on the game select chapter option, and they seem to, again, follow the same story structure as the final game, just with some differences in how things are described. I'll go chapter by chapter, going through each description of it. Chapter 1, The Desert, reads, A distress signal has been picked up in the dead city of Dubai. A Delta Force recon team has been sent to investigate. Chapter 2, The Nest, reads, Delta Squad follows the looters back to their nest in hopes of rescuing a kidnapped soldier. Chapter 3, The Gorge, reads, The 33rd has gone rogue. To find Conrad, Delta must connect with CIA agents operating in Dubai, one of whom has been taken captive. Chapter 4, The Gate, reads, Delta and the CIA have joined forces against the rogue 33rd and their leader, the Radio Man. Chapter 5, The Road, is, In their darkest hour, Delta is confronted by the true leader of the 33rd, John Conrad. Chapter 6, Water, reads, Delta has no choice. Stop Conrad and evacuate Dubai. To do that, they'll need help. Chapter 7, The Squad, reads, Separated from his squad, Walker must face the consequences of his actions. Chapter 8, The Radio Man, reads, Without water, Dubai is dying. Delta heads for the Radio Man's tower, hoping to organize an evacuation. Chapter 9, The Graveyard, is, Scattered by the storm, Delta has but one goal, survival. Chapter 10, The Tower, reads, Delta begins their final assault on Conrad's stronghold. The finale, Chapter 11, Epilogue, just says, 2 weeks later. This has some interesting developments within it, some info that isn't shown within the final game, and some stuff that's left absent. In the final game, there's no timeline given for the epilogue. We don't know how long it's been between Walker giving the distress signal and the arrival of Falcon 1. Here it mentions that it takes place 2 weeks afterward. It also isn't clear how much of Delta survived the game. It doesn't mention Lugo being hung by the refugees, and it doesn't mention Adams doing a last stand against the 33rd. It's unclear if they would have survived, or if they would have died too, and it's just leaving them out to avoid spoilers. Like I mentioned earlier, the story is also pretty compressed. And some chapters that would have been separated are combined here. They also have different titles at times. It also seems like the CIA would have had more involvement in the story, but that could just be me speculating. I mean, the CIA already has decent involvement with Riggs and Gould, maybe Daniels would have survived here too. It's tough to tell. The general structure is similar. It just seems earlier. It seems a little less... It seems less descriptive. It seems a little rougher in terms of how much detail they're giving and what the story would be like. One point that leads to me to believe that this might have been an earlier storyline is that there's also a list of objectives from Mission 1 to Mission 11, and it lines up pretty well with what was described earlier. It seems to be an earlier version of the storyline that describes greater interaction with the CIA and different objectives for each mission, along with a general title for the mission of what your objectives would be. I've got a full list of them here, so let's go through them as well. For Mission 1, the title is Search for Survivors, and the objectives are sort of similar to the real final Mission 1 incorporated with the nest. So we have Proceed toward Dubai, Locate the Distress Beacon, Rescue Alpha Patrol, Get to the Nest, and Hold Out. That would have placed Walker right at the final stand against the refugees in that firefight near the skyscraper that results in Delta falling into that hotel atrium. Mission 2 is listed as Find the 33rd. The objectives are defend your position, keep moving, locate the hostage, find the 33rd, get to the lower floors, capture the turret, shoot out the window. This comprises chapters 3 and 4 pretty much. Mission 3 is called Rescue Agent Daniels. Longer list of objectives here. Find a way down, run, take out the snipers, keep moving, survive, keep going down, stay alive until Delta can reach you, follow the signal, hold back the 33rd, keep following the signal, and fight your way out. Mission 4 is called Reunite with Gould. It has 4 objectives. Find a way out, find Gould, get to the gate, and storm the gate. Presumably this would have been the White Phosphorus mission, along with the battle chapter, where you're trying to link up with Gould before he gets captured by the 33rd. Mission 5 is entitled Deal with Conrad. First objective is Obey, second is Defend your position, third is Find Shelter. That lines up exactly with Chapter 9 of the final game. Mission 6 is entitled Liberate Dubai's Water, and your objectives are save Riggs, follow Riggs to the depot, secure the trucks, and protect the trucks. This seems like a shorter version of Mission 10 and Mission 10 Part 2, where you storm the Aquatic Coliseum, get the water trucks, and then stop the 33rd from taking them back. Mission 7 is listed as Reunite with Delta. Your objectives are locate your squad, save Lugo, press forward, distract the soldiers, protect your squad, clear the way, blow the door, and again, protect your squad. Mission 8 is called Unplug the Radio Man, and it's relatively simple. Get to the radio tower, clear the roof, and locate the Radio Man. Now here's the interesting part. Mission 9 is a continuation of it, so I guess the mission would have ended once you reach the top of the tower, and the part where you get to the helicopter was a separate mission. Mission 9 is Escape, and it says get to the helo, cover Lugo's escape, bring it down, and take out those choppers. So that would have led back to the opening scene in the prologue. Mission 10 is Pick Up the Pieces, so this would have been after the helicopter crash. Find atoms, hold them off, follow Lugo's signal, take cover in the yacht, get to Lugo now, and get the hell out of here. This seems to be pretty much word for word what happens in Chapter 13, where Lugo, Walker, and Adams get separated. They have to reunite, And judging by the objective titles, I'd imagine Luca would have died here as well. Mission 11 is titled as Reach the Burj Aora, which is, I believe, a different title for the Burj Khalifa that they used in this game. I know that they were in hot water with the UAE for including Dubai as this ruined place full of corruption. So they renamed the main tower that Conrad used to stay in. The objectives are move to the tower, take out the mortar, up the street, move, take the tower bunker, take the gatehouse, and run, goddammit. Finally, it lists Mission 12, which is not included among the other descriptions. All it says as a title is Find John Conrad, and your objective is meet him upstairs, which lines up with the 15th chapter pretty well. That's all there is to these objectives. They seem to merge several missions together initially, but by the end point of the game, they seem to be exactly the same. It's interesting, though, how they're broken up again in a different way. The other description had 11 chapters, this one has 12, and it doesn't list an epilogue, but I don't know if there were any objectives in the epilogue in the final game anyway. One more thing to note. In-game, you can't access the prologue from the chapter select. You can only do that by hitting New Game. But the prologue still has a listing if you were to select it through that mission option. It just says, a rough start, as the mission description. It's interesting that they would include this despite it not being accessible. Maybe it was just there as a placeholder. Maybe they considered letting you choose the prologue as an option in the select chapter menu. It's tough to tell. So what does all this mean for the story of Spec Ops? Well, we know that a decent amount changed during the development of the game. Conrad was actually supposed to be alive initially. When Walker confronted him, he was supposed to be alive, but he would end up committing suicide by jumping off the tallest tower in Dubai. That changed during development so that Conrad had committed suicide before Delta's arrival, and the voice that Walker hears is part of his insanity. We also know that Adams would have survived and appeared in a DLC that would have possibly ended with his death, though it isn't made clear by the narrative. It seems like Luca was always supposed to die in this. Poor guy. It also doesn't seem like the choice to use the white phosphorus mortar is reflected in these objectives. If I remember correctly, that had actually been a point of diversion. You would have been able to choose whether to use the white phosphorus mortar or not. In-game, you can sort of try that. You face off against infinite reinforcements and ultimately end up getting killed if you try to fight without it. And to be fair, the 33rd has a lot of armored vehicles at the gate, so I don't know how Delta would have won that fight. But that isn't listed as a point or as an objective, so maybe that was cut before these were written. The way that some chapters are combined is interesting, too. Some of the early chapters are on the short side. You can complete Chapter 2 pretty quickly if you push through it. But part of the point of Spec Ops is to take your time with it and take in everything. Maybe it was separated to give the game more breathing room, let players take in the environment of the ruined Dubai landscape, just how horrific things had gotten. It's interesting, though, to read through this, see the ideas that Yeager had regarding the story of the game. It definitely seems like a lot of thought was put into the story and how to proceed with it and how to structure it. And I can really appreciate that. Seems like even though Yeager was really exhausted with the game by the time they finished it, they definitely tried to put a lot of love into it and a lot of care to make sure it held up well. And for that, I really appreciate the chance to be able to read through these files, because to me it shows just how hard they worked on the game. And it's fascinating, too, to look at older versions of games and see what all they had in mind, what all the developers wanted to do. Because due to time constraints and other issues, they can't always achieve all the objectives they're pushing for, or just due to complications like not using the white phosphorus, because that would have completely required an alternate route for the story, since the main game story hinges on Walker using it and the consequences of that, not just on his squad in Dubai, but on his psyche. Anyway, that's all I've got on this potential original storyline for Spec Ops. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments. Do you think it's just an earlier draft of the game's objectives and such? Do you think it reflects an earlier storyline, like the one with Conrad still being alive? I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's just so neat to look through all of this. Thank you for watching, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the cut content of Spec Ops: The Line. Have a good one.